Hate the players, hate the game. Every amount of pleasure comes with the same amount of pain. We got Maddux from Bay Bridge Sports covering your sports in the Bay Area. And Maddux, I want to get something straightened out right, and it is this Evander Kane garbage going on, and there's just been nonstop, and there went to be, his behavior from little stuff to big stuff to his now ex-wife trying to potentially screw him over, and there's this big league investigation. Not only that, but there's talk about his contract just being dumped by the Sharks, which is 4 years left, $28 million. But that would be us saying, okay, for a baseball player, that's like saying, okay, he's got over $100 million left. Let's just eat it. Or for an
Yep.
NFL player, you know what I mean? Let's just trade him for a 6 round pick while he is a quarterback for 2 years somewhere else. It's that kind of philosophy right there. So,
Kind of like the Pablo Sandoval deal with Boston, how they kind of just ate the money and let him walk.
I mean, they had no choice there, if you ask me. But so there's a couple things going on there, and number one is it's kind of one of those things where you can get away with anything, and it's okay because there's not that veteran leadership in there. When I think of the veteran leadership that's no longer there, he's somewhere else trying to find a role. It's probably Joe Thornton. He ran the ship
Yeah.
for a long time.
Yep. Joe Thornton, and then I think Marlowe just resigned actually, but losing him at the trade deadline year back, I mean, the, the oldest player on the team left, I think, was probably Kane. I'll have to go back and or Kane or Brent Burns, either one of those guys. But like you said, like I think the problem with Kane right now is we don't know what the truth is. You have his wife spewing stuff, or his ex-wife spewing stuff. You have him spewing stuff, and we haven't really heard much from the NHL about it. Like no official investigation.
And that's
Like we
just
don't
on
have a
this
conclusion
topic,
yet.
too. Yes.
Right. There's no like evidence. There's no proof out there. But one thing I did want to kind of say is there's like two likely scenarios here. His wife is telling the truth, and a lot of this stuff is true, or she's exaggerating it. And because I mean, there's plenty of evidence he gambled excessively that year. He showed $2 million in losses on his taxes. That is actual documented proof that he lost $2 million gambling.
Correct.
Um, but the question is was he actually betting on his games, and is he working with bookies to throw games? If so, I think the FBI should be involved. Like that should be something that's like the
Oh,
federal government should be
absolutely.
involved
I mean,
because that's wrong.
yes. Fun fact, I actually learned through documentaries. The Colombo mafia family, the Cap regime the former Cap regime did admit that there was some drug use in the NBA, and this is in the Knicks talking 70s, 80s, and there were guys that did shave points just to beat the spread or points under over. So the FBI should definitely be involved if that is the case. But as far as I'm concerned, the main thing is that they're saying, okay, he bet against himself through the games, but he had I think, a good year, and I don't think there's many people that would argue. So as far
Right?
as
Yeah, he
that,
he played probably the best hockey of his year that year,
absolutely. So it's
best
very
hockey of his
hard
career.
with that. But I mean, is there a chance where maybe it's so hard to say. I mean, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt for now and just let things take its course. But there's other things that go wrong with it. Now, there's a lot of the things where they say, okay, teams have locker room problems. The Rangers had the LaRussa thing, and it's like, dude, this is your third team. You got problems. You're an idiot. You're just a jerk. You could throw in any explicit swear like Joe Judge. It's just how it goes.
Right?
But it came to the part where on a regular basis, the teammates are going in the GM's office and saying, he's got to go, dude. I'm sorry, he's got to go. And that money that they signed him to, that's very generous. It seems to be a trending thing in hockey where you just want to throw a guy 7 years. And I think that's why they're against like teams fighting now. It's like, dude, you can't do that. I got that guy for 6 more years, $20 million. What are you doing to me? Okay, long contracts, big money. and now you don't want guys to fight. It's like you're literally having these contracts change the dynamic of the game. Baseball did it, the NFL did it, the NBA did it, now hockey's doing it. It's a shame. The pain.
Well, I mean, there's always that saying in sports where every locker has problems, right? But
Agreed.
I don't think that they're having this level of problems that Kane is giving off. Apparently, he has been um, navigating some choppy waters with the team. Most recently, 2 3 seasons ago, I mean, there was legitimate question about his hustle, legitimate question about how much work he was putting in, and I think he kind of answered that question last year with how well he played. But I like again, all this stuff is coming back up, and it centers around the gambling. I wouldn't want to play with a guy who was fixing games, right? Would
No,
you?
I wouldn't. It's like if you know, if listen, if his teammates come forward and say something, right now the only thing that's been said through is through agents for their own protection. As in,
Right.
agent, my client said X. You know what I mean? And that's just to protect the player and to protect the locker room, even though it's just a absolute abomination. It's a disgrace. It's absolutely just piss poor. But if they did have something against him, like any reasonable, you know, possible thing of saying, you know what, I have this, I'm not sure if it could help you. These things can be solved quick if people come forward. So that hasn't been said. And since they don't like the guy and they want him gone, possibly the NHL would suspend him. I actually think that they would do it. I think they would speed up the process because no team is trading for this guy, even if it's just for a seventh round pick and they eat the money. It's not happening that way. And this might be one of the only scenarios where I think they're actually going to eat the rest of the 4 years on that deal. Do you think that's possible?
I think it is. If it comes back that he really honestly didn't, he didn't rig games, and he ultimately it's just locker room problems at this point. Um, I think that they may have to eat the contract, but then again, there's the gambling side of it where if he is found guilty of any way of betting on himself or betting on games that he was involved in, just that, not just fixing games, that's a whole separate problem. But if he's found betting on his own games, his contract could be void where the Sharks don't have to pay him anything and
Correct.
he's
So, I
banned from the
mean,
game.
so the Sharks are obviously waiting on the process. So if it's a gambling like this, right? The problem is that every time that you go and there's even been a suit where people are going, okay, I want the professional sports leagues, I want to cover the profits because you're basically betting on our name.
Right.
There's actually teams that are going forward and trying to do that.
Well,
So
I mean,
gambling is a lot more. I mean, listen, where if it's done by through Bitcoin, doesn't matter if it's cash on the side. The problem being is that everything's electronic and everything has just been trending and everything's just going forward in it. I don't think it's like the 70s where people were using it for drug money. And I don't think that it's like Michael Jordan where it's just like an addiction. And he's just, I don't know if it was
I don't
just a
know, man.
hobby or something to
It,
prove, but nobody's
it,
gotten killed. No one's using drugs that we know of. Do I think that this could be a lifetime ban? I'm not so certain. Can it be definitely at least a year? Absolutely. And he
well, I
doesn't
don't know
need to
if you
lose any money right now.
right? I don't know if you've seen what his wife has been saying, but his wife has said that he has disappeared for weeks at a time, not calling her, not calling the this was back when they were together, not calling their daughter and checking in on her, and would just text her out of the blue and say, "I'm going to Europe for a week," and then would just disappear, just absolutely disappear. And she said that happened on multiple occasions. So who knows, like what is going on behind the scenes? Like I said, she could just be upset that he left her for Chrissy Teigen's sister. He's with her now. She's I think she's an Instagram model, but
Yeah, another one. Yeah.
right. And
Listen, after what happened to PJ over in Charlotte, man, these athletes got to stop dating their Instagram models because guess what? If a model has a baby and somebody says we don't find you cute anymore, then guess what? I hate to say it, but some of these people are going to say, "Hey, if I have an athlete's baby, this is my retirement."
that's
And
a
I
Doe the
listen,
Pain moment right there.
I hate saying it. I feel terrible, but that's actuality for some of these people.
Yeah, and also too, like when you look back at Kane, I mean, the problem, like the gambling is probably a manifestation of his personality as a whole. I mean, you look back at his time in Buffalo and his time in, I think, Winnipeg.
Yes.
He had some accusations there too of just him being an asshole in the locker room. I mean, the locker room problems have followed him everywhere, and I think this is the best parallel I can make is to Yasiel Puig for the Dodgers. I mean, you had Clayton Kershaw going to the manager's office saying we need to trade this guy, going into the GM saying we need to trade this guy now. And he may be a talented player, but is it really worth the locker room headache?
Well, the thing is with I think it's a little different from Puig is because there are certain things now. He'd almost now Kane did almost get into it with a coach for lineup during a power play, and Yasiel Puig did shred up defensive cards that were used for batters in the
Right.
outfield.
And they both have off the field issues too.
Yes, a tendency of being late to games and practices, goofing off in practice, and the NHL is the only of the major four sports where there's a dress code, as in, hey man, it's kind of like the movie. I Remember the Titans, and the coaches goes, I don't care if you got to go to a homeless man, buy him dinner to get the suit off his back. Guess what? You are going on this bus in a suit. So sure enough, one of the things, and all these articles I'm reading is even going back to the time where he was in Winnipeg. He showed up to the game in sweats, and he got disciplined by not starting that game. Now, I
Right.
think if you're mentioning that, I think that's just getting to the point where it's just like, okay, we totally don't like the guy. We're going inside and out to the point where it's even petty. I'll let that one go because he's in a lot deeper water, but you get what I mean and how just bad this is becoming.
Well, I remember before um, Evander Kane was traded to Buffalo from Winnipeg, um, there was that talk of literally the second he left, teammates called him distracting, immature, selfish, cocky, and a jerk. That is
Mm,
not someone I want to go out and play hockey with for what is it, 80 games a year? Like
yep,
that's just not someone I want to play with. And like I don't and
absolutely.
this gambling stuff might be the last straw with the locker room in San Jose.
Oh,
I
for
think
sure.
I think I don't think he'll play for them next year, honestly, if I'm going to be completely honest. And I do think that some of this investigation by the NFL and the NHL might actually turn up some things, and we're just gonna have to wait and see.
All right. So I actually found out today Chris Davis is retiring. Ever since he
Yeah.
got busted with Adderall, it's been downhill. And to give credit to Chris Davis, he will have his own episode hopefully soon. But I will say, give credit to the man because he could have been waiting it out until the Orioles basically decided to turn him loose, and he could be making millions and millions on the couch. He did not do that, and he bowed out with grace, and that's why he has respect from me. But moving on to baseball, you have a player on your team who I think is a future Hall of Famer, who is a Giants legend. We'll have his number retired, but this is a Doe the Pain here. Tell me about the play that issued what's called the Posey rule.
So I just want to preface this. I mean, I feel like this is one of the moments in sports history, like as a Giants fan, especially, you remember exactly where you were when you saw this. I was in Santa Cruz, California. Um, had just spent the day at the boardwalk there. I was 11 years old. I mean, the season before was absolutely crazy. It was like one of the first full seasons I watched as a baseball fan. The Giants 2010 season, it was just absolutely crazy. I watched almost every playoff game, even like when I was in school. We had a teacher who would play it just because she was a big Giants fan. So I got to watch literally every playoff game, and just watching that run was absolutely insane to me. That's what really made me fall in love with the Giants. And the big part of that was Buster Posey. I got to see him play his last minor league game in AAA before he got called up. And the rest is kind of history. They went on to win the title. And he was lighting it up in 2011, too. And I think it was the middle of the season. We are playing the Marlins at home. And I was actually watching the game on TV in my hotel room. And I just saw the guy rounding third base with a full head of steam. And Shearholtz was our right fielder at the time. Cocked back and threw it. And I was like, oh, damn, they might have him. and they got him out, but Buster got obliterated. And I kind of thought he was going to get up right away, but just seeing that, like, your favorite player, like he's always been my favorite Giant. Just watching him grimace in pain and like the way he was grabbing the dirt is like just something you'll never forget. I almost wanted to turn off my TV at that point just because it was just like I literally cannot handle watching this. And granted, it kind of derailed our entire 2011 season, and just absolutely like it honestly crushed me as a Giants fan. But it was really awesome to see the next year. He comes back, wins Comeback Player of the Year, MVP, and we win another ring. So I mean, all good things, all bad things kind of end with some good things happening.
I mean, essentially, I mean, you look at him the way I looked at Derek Jeter as a kid.
Right? Yeah. He's like, I would say he's the Giants version of Derek Jeter at this point. I mean, other than
You have
Barry
to.
Bonds, Barry Bonds was a different icon for San Francisco, but Buster Posey is just like
No, you can't put that in the same breath. You just
no.
can't.
Well, I mean, Barry has to get credit for building Oracle. Now it's Oracle Park, but back then it was Pac Bell. They really built that to showcase him, and he's kind of one of the main reasons. People forget the Giants were a poverty franchise before he showed up. Like we were not good. We had a terrible '80s and '90s.
I
Like
get
it
it.
was rough times.
But just remember, the Yankees in the 70s and 80s, it was a rough transition period. And
Right.
everyone's thinking, hey, what happens after the Eminem Bros? Well, not much. But if you think about it, right, a guy that came up through the system, won you 3 rings. Every time he's hurt, you want to cry.
Right.
If you just look at his presence, the way he carries himself, the way that he's looked at through the media, the only people that hate him are the people that play against him. If you look at him as far as a figure, Derek Jeter became a god of New York, and Buster Posey at the end of his career, we don't know how long he has because of those knees. And I understand that it's looking very up. And after this year, I think you have to keep that option for him just to see if you could go another year.
100%.
100%, absolutely. But that's just what you see him. You see him as a god of the Bay. The Bay Area, that
Right. And
means God.
like that's part of the reason why I like it's hard to like look at his body of work like from a number standpoint, not just the rings and the accolades, but like looking at his numbers specifically. He does have some shortcomings in terms of counting stats for the Hall of Fame, but I do think you have to take into account the position he plays, and catcher is a completely different position than when the
Yes.
Piazzas were doing it. When gosh, Yogi Berra, there's only like I think there's only 11 Hall of Fame catchers if I'm not wrong. And I really think the Hall of Fame needs to start evaluating that position a little bit differently, because it's
Yes.
not going to be a counting stats position. And I personally think that if any catcher is going to get in without the counting stats, it should be Buster. But if he has 2 or 3 more years like he's having this year, where he gets every third day off, plays 120, 130 games a year, and hits 330 with 20 bombs as he's on pace to do. I mean, he might end up being a Hall of Famer just on his numbers alone.
Yes, we got to do the Hall of Fame. I've vented and ranted about the Hall of Fame. I've talked to Crow about this. I've talked to Matt about this. I've talked to a lot of guys over at our group of network that we've had. And fun fact, did you know that Andrew Jones has actually got the best defensive WAR for center fielders of
Yep.
all time?
Yeah,
And
they
what's the reason why he's not getting in? Because there was something involving domestic violence. Now, listen, as long as it's not sexual assault, I think you got to put the guy in, as crazy as it says. But the fact that people aren't in because it's like, well, this guy's had DUI before. Oh, what? Babe Ruth, the guy that, was caught drunk swimming a hotel fountain. Do we want to revoke him for cheating on his wife? Are we revoking him? Listen, I understand
right.
that some of these writers have valid points, right? But I think if we're going to go by just statistics and the accolades, the analytics, right? Okay, we go by position. We go by WAR, defensive WAR, offensive WAR. Then let's go by things by hits. Now, if we're going by a catcher, right? Starting catcher. Okay, how many games is this guy going to play a year? Not including DH, everything else. How good is he defensively? What did he mean in the offensive lineup? Where did he bat? Where are the guys protecting him? You know what I mean? All this stuff matters. Like if you want to
Right.
just do it like this, right? There's a reason why Hall of Famers for 2 years that are the best player in the game don't get in. Otherwise, Cody Bellinger would be in. Kristen
Right.
Yelich would definitely be a lock. Aaron Judge potentially a lock. It goes by dominant years. How many dominant years do you need? I don't know. But just remember, there's a lot of guys not long ago that are stuck on 300 wins. The only guy
Right.
that could even come close, who's still an active player, was Clayton Kershaw. But then the back issues happened. He's not reliable. That double clutch kick is starting to get to him. We're going to see how long he's got left of because of that.
I
And
think
that's
he's a Hall of
the
Famer though,
bullpen.
already locked.
Oh, absolutely a Hall of Famer. But I'm just saying the wins total, right,
Right.
is an
Yeah.
absolute abomination. Particularly when how many times have we seen a starter go 6 innings, less than 3 runs earned, which is a quality start, and then you put in a mediocre bullpen arm to blow the lead. And oh yeah, by the way, even though this guy pitched absolutely phenomenal, he gets to 100 pitches, and then oh yeah, this guy had to blow the save, and now he
Do you know
goes.
why that's happening though? Baseball has been completely modernized in terms of what value stats have value. And you look at it, and starting pitcher wins does not have as much value as people think it does. I mean,
Correct.
look at a guy like DeGrom. DeGrom is probably one of the best pitchers in the league. And he, like, I think a couple of seasons ago, like, had like a 2 ERA and only had like 11 wins.
Exactly. And
Like,
I
it's like,
remember when Sonny Gray was trying to be booed out of New York, him and Jacob DeGrom at one point had the same amount of wins, and they're like, how's this work? I
yeah,
mean, if the
2019,
pitcher's got
DeGrom
20 wins, I get it. But if he's got 10 wins, you got to look at the other stats.
DeGrom's won 2 Cy Youngs, one with 11 wins and one with 10 wins. He was in 2018, he was 10-9 with a 1.7 ERA
That's
and
right.
270 strikeouts. That's insanity. How do you only get 10 wins? That like someone like that should be getting 20, 30
Well,
because pitcher.
just like this year, right? In prior years, it was bullpen. But now, right, they're saying, how come when Jacob DeGrom pitches, the offense isn't that great? You want to know something very painful? They picked up a guy from the waiver wire, okay? A guy who is designated for assignment and basically threw out release because the Astros got younger, right? Josh Reddick has a higher batting average than Michael Conforto by like 50 or 60. And I'm sorry, that your golden boy on his walk year, that's probably going to demand 150 to 200 million dollars compared to a guy who's on the last year of his deal just about. And what? He's here on a minor league deal and he's got the least amount of pressure. He's not a big time free agent. He doesn't have all these, expectations going to his head. Nothing. That guy doesn't have to do anything. All he's got to do is just do his thing and do better than Michael Conforto.
Which is crazy because Conforto had a career year last year. Like he hit 320, I think, and had 9 home runs in 50 games. Like he had a pretty good year. He had 927 OPS, 154 OPS plus, which is really, really good. That's 50%, 54% better than the average player, which is crazy. Like he literally fell off a cliff this year. I have no idea. Him and Lindor, I think there's something in the water in
You,
New
I
York.
love that expression too. I have no
Right.
idea what the hell is in the water in Queens. Now, I actually have looked into a few things. So what happens is, what I've noticed with with Lindor and Conforto, Lindor after the sticky stuff kind of got put the kibosh on. He's done better and his timing has been off, right? But the problem that I've been seeing with Conforto is kind of like this, right? His arms are here and his hips are not together. So
His
I'm
hips are
seeing a lot
outpacing
of
his
balls.
arms.
Like when you're a lefty and you see a lot of pitches chased with the front arm, it means he's chasing a lot of balls and up and down his upper and lower body are in sync. So he's got something going on there. Now, I'm not sure if it's mental, mechanical, but there's just something not right about him, and it's concerning. You know what I mean? If you heard
They
my
don't
commentary last night, I mean, the guy's striking out a ton. just hitting around 200. This guy's a
Mendoza
mess.
line. Well, I think that same kind of I don't know if it was just because this offseason was weird compared to normal years, just because of the whole COVID situation. I mean, Cody Bellinger is hitting 183 this year. A former MVP, career 270 hitter before this season, is hitting 183. Like
He
I don't
also
know
has
what.
mechanical issues going on.
Well,
Also,
him, Yelich as well.
Yelich, it's a little bit different, but Bellinger, there's clear, and I've always said it ever since he got into the big leagues, there's a hole in his swing and he's being exposed. And if those mechanics are not right, you're going to get bitten and you're going to be eaten alive.
I mean, but you're talking about a guy who hit 47 home runs and had 115 RBIs 2 seasons ago. And then even last year in the COVID year, he was hitting bombs. And granted, the average wasn't there, but I mean, it's just crazy to me how far he dropped off.
Oh, yeah. And these guys were 2 years in a row, they're trying to win MVP against each other. In the
Right,
COVID year, it just seems like they just tried to do too much early on and it got to them mentally. Same thing with Javi Baez. You could throw him
right.
in there. Now, I think Javi Baez, it's more about having happy feet and him being overly aggressive. That's why the strikeouts are there. But the fact that you got two MVPs that, in I guess you could say, a whole season and a half haven't had their mechanics down to where they should be, it's absolutely astonishing. I'm not sure who's the hidden coach. I'm not sure what has been placed in their brain, but something is off and it's disgraceful.
Which is crazy because, again, going back to the Giants, you look at the Giants and they have guys who have struggled for years now. I mean, Buster did not have a good year the year before the COVID year. Crawford had really struggled, and now these guys are like having career years at like 35 years old,
Well, I
which
mean,
is insanity.
Posey's got the option, and Crawford is on his walk year. I mean, it's funny because that's very
Right.
common. But Brandon Crawford, he's looked like an absolute all star in his prime again.
He's hitting
Along,
295 this year.
yeah, it's insane.
He's got 19 home runs and 69 RBIs. And
And
I
that
mean,
that home ballpark too, which I know that people say it's meant for home run hitting, but guess
it
what?
kind of opened up a little bit.
That's a high wall to hit over. Bottom
Well,
line.
he's been hitting a lot of opposite field home runs. I don't know if you saw last night. He went oppo over the left center field fence, and I mean, you look at the Giants. Just to toot my own horn here, the Giants lineup: catcher Buster Posey, 34 years old; Brandon Belt, 33 years old; Donovan Solano, 33 years old; Brandon Crawford, 34 years old; Evan Longoria, 35 years old; Alex Dickerson, 31 years old; Mike Yastrzemski, 30 years old; and then Chris Bryant, 29 years old. They don't have anyone younger than 29 years old on their starting lineup.
And I hate to say it, but I mean, the Giants, when you said poverty franchise, it's been one of those franchises now where it's like, even though it may not help their team going forward the next 3 years, they're in all the big free agents. I mean, you got Samardzija off the books, thank goodness.
And we
This,
get Cueto off the books next year, too.
if you decide to pay out his option, yes, which I think you absolutely have to.
Oh, 100%.
100%, no questions asked. He's not worth the money.
And I love
Posey, I
him.
take his option at this point.
What's that?
I gotta take the Posey option though. I have to opt
Oh,
him.
yeah. I think we'll exercise Posey's option. And I think we have to give not Longoria, Crawford a 2-year deal. And then I would love to get Cueto back after we buy out his option. The question is, I want it at the right price. You know what I'm saying?
1 year, $5 million deal kind of thing, and plus you're paying him for his option.
Right. I would be totally fine with that. 1 year, even 8. I would be okay with 8 just because he could easily be a long reliever for us. I wouldn't be opposed to that on a 1-year deal. And honestly, with the emergence of Logan Webb right now, I don't know if you're seeing what he's doing, man, but he is lighting it up this season. He's had some injury issues, but through 15 starts, he has a 3.19 ERA with 82 strikeouts in 79 innings, which, I mean, that's kind of what I'm looking for in a starting pitcher is, can you average a strikeout an inning in the major leagues consistently? And he's really done that.
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen a lot of people don't really know about him, just because he's 24 years old. He was our top pitching prospect a couple years ago.
Yes.
Um,
Another thing is, are you going to be re-signing Chris Bryant? Because I think you just have to.
well, the question is are we going to be able to get him at a reasonable price? You know, like if the evil empire comes in and says we're going to give you 10 years, 330 million, Giants can't match that. We shouldn't match
Well,
that.
I just want to let you know straight up, the New York Yankees, for how cheap they've been the last couple of years, and then you have Anthony Rizzo possibly being extended to nowhere close to that amount of money. There's no way that they're in for Chris Bryant. They
No,
got
I'm just saying in general, if any team wants to come in and offer him that, because I mean, he is a Scott Boras client. Who are his buddies too? He grew up with Harper. I mean, he grew up with Harper in Nevada, so I mean, he could be looking for that deal. And you know what? I really think he's having a lot of fun playing ball in San Francisco right now, and just seeing what he's saying in interviews. I think we could get him on a hometown version, like a hometown because it's not his hometown, but that kind of discount where we could get him for maybe 5-year, $100 million contract, which I would not be, or 5 years, even 150 million, 5 years, 125,
I
somewhere in
think
that.
it's going to be like a 5-year, 150 minimum. Knowing Scott Boras, I think it's actually going to be crazy for me because he's going to have Chris Bryant and Michael Conforto. Now, I know Chris Bryant can play the outfield. I just don't know if he can do it on a consistent basis. I don't think so. I'd rather keep him at third base, particularly at Oracle. But he's going to have to figure out Michael Conforto and Chris Bryant's contracts.
Right.
And they're not going to get paid nearly the same amount of money. Scott
No,
Boras
no,
is
no.
pulling his hair out, knowing that the Conforto value is dropping by the day. So if Chris
It's
Bryant,
already diminished.
I think if Javi's going to get 200, I see Chris Bryant getting close to 300, and Michael
That's what I'm
Conforto will
saying.
be
And
lucky if he got 150. Hell, if Michael Conforto got 5 years 100, like Dennis Schroeder, he needs to take that, be grateful, and shut up.
right, but I could also see him pulling a Conforto, pulling kind of a bet on yourself moment and signing a 1-year, $10 million deal somewhere, where if he lights it up, then he gets his big deal, you know?
I actually think that what the Mets are going to do, I think he's going to have potentially the qualifying offer his way.
Yeah.
So I think what's going to happen is every team who's interested in to sign their guy, or even if they're not, you have to at least offer that to them. So it's either okay, they get the other team's first round draft pick, or we get this guy on a prove it deal. And based on the way that's going, it's going to be $19 million.
Right.
Potentially be close to 20, maybe 19 and a half, but it's in the $19 million range. Now, again, this is Scott Boras we're dealing with, and he usually doesn't like to extend before his free agency periods because he
Right.
wants guys to get into bidding.
Exactly.
If Michael
And that's
Conforto gets the $19 million for the 1-year prove it deal, I mean, I don't think Scott Boras is going to allow him to accept it. I think it's going to have to be worked out for more money. But
or longer.
if I'm the Mets, I'm very scared because, listen, I understand that this is another forever player. It's rare. I mean, I know Wright is a sad story, but that's very similar. Reyes, it's a very up and down, wishy washy, bad, sad story. When you think of a forever player, you think of guys like Ed Kranepool. Michael Conforto can be that guy if he gets out of his funk. But the question is, you got the
Right.
agent and the price tag, and I just feel so wishy washy about it. But I mean, we'll see how it goes. Your focus is on Chris Bryant. Do I think that he'll get? I'll just say I'll just say like a Max Scherzer contract. I see 7 years, 210.
I
And
would be
maybe
okay with
if
that
you
too,
want to
honestly.
up the ante a little bit, 7 240.
I mean, I would be totally okay with that. I just don't want to be paying him when he's 39 years old, you know?
Yeah.
I don't want to, that's the reason why I didn't want the Giants to go after Harper. Even though Harper is a Hall of Fame player and he will be worth that money for the first 5-6 years. Same with Stanton, although Stanton's been injured. I don't want that's another Doe the Pain moment.
I didn't want Giancarlo Stanton to clog the DH spot for the next decade. The pain, my God. I didn't
But
want it.
yeah,
I didn't want it.
that's why I'm happy the Giants didn't sign him because he would have had nowhere to play here.
I also didn't want Joey Gallo in New York. I don't care about his walk rate if this is going to be one of the lead-in teams of all time and run into double play. Who cares if he walks? My God.
I do like Gallo though. He's a guy who traditional stats don't favor, but new metrics like OPS plus and WAR really favor him just because he launches the ball and he walks. I mean, you're talking about a guy who is only hitting 220 and has struck out 150 times this season in 310 at bats. Yet he still has a 380 on base percentage, which is above league average. You know.
I understand, but what I'm saying is, right, it works in a certain system. If you ground into a double play after a guy walks, it doesn't fit the system. It doesn't
Right,
fit
100%.
this year Yankees system, and he's only here for the rest of this year. So that's why I think that doesn't work. I understand the short porch, but also I think the guy who I think perfected this type of thing was Jim Tomei. But he
Right.
is not in the same conversation as Joey Gallo. Because if you'll just look at the way he tries to launch the ball, he tries too hard.
Well, funny story is
On solid wood. I saw
right,
it growing up. Gallo,
right.
he just wants to swing hard, rip it deep, cut it up. He tries too hard on every single swing and it bites him.
Well, I mean, you look at his stats this year, he leads Major League Baseball in walks, yet he also leads Major League Baseball in strikeouts. He's just an anomaly, honestly. I don't think we've ever seen a player kind of with the way Gallo is. He's kind of an anomaly.
He's a double-edged sword.
Right, 100%.
Got
But he's
bounced
a
out.
guy I would want for a playoff run because his defensive value is very, very high. I mean, he's got a cannon. He's got decent range. With
So
him and
far,
Judge,
he's been just okay. There's been certain plays where I'm kind of looking at it and I'm just kind of like, I
it
understand
does
that
take
he's an
adjustments though to
athlete,
play it.
and I do understand that people underestimate his athletic ability because you're like, okay, he's a power hitter, but that doesn't mean he can't field the damn ball.
Right.
But
But it does take adjustments
I
playing
think
in
he's
new
been
ballparks,
used
you know?
to left field in Yankee Stadium. I'll give him a bit, and they'll make the judgment on that. So far, there's been a couple fly balls where I'm saying, you know what, Brett Gardner or somebody else could do a better job there, but I will let this ride out and be the course. Now, the last segment I think you wanted to talk about because I think a lot of people find it hard to believe that a Bay Area guy is a Steelers fan. When I think of Steelers pain, I think of Bill Belichick just seeing right through the Mike Tomlin defense. I think of playoff upsets, Patriots win over them. There now, just remember, there's a lot of people that discredit a lot of quarterbacks, but just remember in the playoffs for the this century, if your name is not Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, or 1 year Joe Flacco. For the most part, if you're not named those guys, you're not making the Super Bowl.
Right.
So if you're Philip Rivers or if you're those type of guys, you got to give them a break because guess what? We don't count it against them in the NBA. We give them Hall of Fame trophies. We get them the basketball immortality. In the NFL, it's like they want to take their nuts and cut them off them. That's not fair to guys like Philip Rivers who
No.
couldn't go to the final dance because Tom Brady's been crapping down his neck for all these years. It's not fair at all. But when we go to the biggest painful moment that was absolute BS, and listen, there's a lot of things I'd like to change in the rule book as far as basketball, as far as baseball. But for the NFL, it seems to change the rules every year for bad or for worse. And still to this day, we're still going to be arguing a catch. This year, we're going to be seeing what is a taunt, and it's going to be an absolute bloodbath, and people are going to lose millions on these games because of these taunting
Right.
penalties. But the catch, the non-catch of, well, a guy named after a gangster, Jesse James.
Well, kind of the
What-
play that never
what-
happened. Well, I remember that game was basically to decide who was going to be the first seed in the AFC. It was week 14, and New England was 10-3. We were 11-2. Game came right down to the wire. It was 27-24 with like 30 seconds left, and Ben hits Jesse James over the middle, and Jesse reaches over the goal line, called a touchdown, no problem. Well, the NFL reviews it because it's under 2 minutes. And at that, they've changed the definition of a catch so many times in the last 5 years. As an NFL fan, it drives me crazy because I have no idea what's considered a catch every week and what's not. I mean, look back at the Dez Bryant catch. They didn't even have proper definition back then, too. Although I will say that was a catch. Dez Bryant caught that ball. But Jesse James coming over the middle, reaches out, and it was called a touchdown. They go review it, and they come back and say no touchdown. I was genuinely confused. It was like, what is going on? Or they called it a catch, but he was down at the 1. It was reversed, and this would have been one of the only times Roethlisberger beat Brady. I think Brady's 8-2 against Ben, just because Belichick absolutely shreds our defense for whatever reason. We just never have been able to hold. I think he scored 30 points against us every time we play, and it is so frustrating because our defense is hopeless. We get ripped to shreds, and this would have been one of the big signature moments. Would have put us as the 1 seed in the AFC, and it got called back, and the rest is kind of history. As Ben kind of went no huddle and tried to catch the Patriots off guard and throws a pick in the end zone, and the pain. It was really frustrating. And granted, I could say a lot of moments as a Steelers fan. Like this last decade
Isn't that another thing that happened too? Just recently, wasn't there a thing with wasn't Antonio Brown hurt in the playoff game same year, or was that a different year?
Every playoff run we had with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, one of them was hurt for a playoff run. We never had a fully healthy playoff run with them, so I would assume either one of them was hurt.
And listen, this is my first Chiefs jersey here, Priest Holmes. I told you that Chiefs Kingdom hates me because I'm not an arrogant asshole, but we just agree on this. I know you got to take off. A the pain agreement from a Steelers fan and a Chief fan. Can we agree that Le'Veon Bell sucks?
He does suck. Honestly, I think that our O-line made him. He got very arrogant and cocky after his first couple years in Pittsburgh, and that led to his demise. He thinks he's a lot better than he actually is. I loved him. Absolutely. I wish we could have saved him, but we couldn't.
You can't save a man from his own ego, and I think that is
exactly
the best way to end this. Maddux of Baybridge Sports, thank you.
Yes, sir.
It's been a bittersweet thing, but we've been able to have a couple of laughs. Unfortunately, Bake was on the show here for about 2 hours. He basically got things off his chest, and he couldn't have the amount of laughs that you could have. You've made it through. I call him Soldier for a reason, and that's a good way to end this up. Thank you for being on, man. We got to discuss more sometime.
Awesome. Thank you, AJ.
All right. We got Max. This is Relly P, and we're out. Take it easy, everybody.